I guess what we have to understand is, first of all, study the lives of the prophets. Study the lives of the prophets, every single one of them. Starting from Adam. What happened with Adam's sons? One killed the other. Yeah? Nuh. What happened with his son? He was a disbeliever. Lut. What happened with his wife? She betrayed. Asya. She was married to Pharaoh. Maryam. She had the people around her who were, slandering her. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his uncle. Ibrahim alayhi salam, his father, was making the idols. Do you see the pattern? I think we forget that our tests will happen in the family. We forget that. And then we're always so busy trying to keep face, right? We just have to make sure nobody sees that we're not perfect. Prophets' families were not perfect. You think yours is going to be? Yeah, do you understand that? Like, their families were not perfect, but your family's going to be perfect. And everybody's expecting that. Everyone thinks that. No, it's just, that is not the sunnah of this life. That is just not the way. And so Allah is showing us in the stories of the prophets that actually the tests will be in those closest to you. I mean, there is not a single case where there isn't someone close that is actually trying to harm or disbelieve or an enemy or just some dysfunction. What is that teaching us? Well, first, yes, we will be tested in those closest to us. And if you don't think that you will be, you need to go back and read the Quran. Like, if your expectation is that because they're family, they should never be a test, you didn't understand, you didn't understand the assignment. You didn't understand. Everybody agree? We do not have infinite capacity. Everyone agree? We do not have infinite time. We do not have infinite energy. We do not have infinite brain space. We do not have infinite anything, right? And with that limited capacity, we have to be very mindful how we use it. Okay? Now, if I have 100 parts of capacity, and I am using 99.9 of those parts holding up a mask, trying to keep face, putting up a filter, making sure that the appearance looks perfect in front of others, online, social media, in front of the community, in front of society, 99.9 parts are used up in holding a heavy mask, because it is heavy. It is heavy to pretend. It's heavy to wear a mask. It's heavy to always have to put on a show. It's very heavy. In fact, there's actually a term in psychology called masking, and it's exhausting. It's so exhausting that you run out of energy after you've had to mask. Like, it's a term that's used, in psychology for when, for example, neurodivergent individuals who have to act like they're a different way than they are, they call it masking, especially on the autism spectrum. It's tiring. Masking is tiring, but we have our own masking. So it's tiring to hold up a mask. It's tiring. It's exhausting to put on a show. You know what I mean? So if you're using up 99.9 parts, holding this heavy mask, where is the energy left to actually solve your issues? To actually fix it? To actually do something? Do you understand the problem? Do you understand the problem? And this is a problem we have in our community. This is a serious problem. We don't have any energy left because our biggest concern is, what are people going to say? What are people going to think? So the 99.9 is worried about what are people going to say and what are people going to think. There is nothing left to actually rectify anything, to actually grow inside, to actually work on our problems, to actually do anything to change it, because we're depleted at keeping up face. Do you understand? At the performance, at the filtering, the masking. This is a big problem, Because in our cultures, it's all about how things appear. It's all about what are people saying? What are people going to think? I can tell you this right now, until you let go of that. And by the way, that's part of hubb dunya. That is actually part of love of dunya, because you're so worried about how you appear in dunya in front of the creation. That is hubb dunya. That's what that is. And so until you cure yourself of that, until you seek the help of Allah to cure yourself of that, you will never have the actual ability to fix anything. Because all you're doing is putting filters on broken things. Arguments are used. Things like have sabr. This is a big one. What does sabr mean? Sabr does not mean standing in a burning house and doing nothing. Sabr doesn't mean drinking poison and keeping a smile on your face. This is the cultural, toxic definition of sabr. It is not correct. Okay? Sabr requires taking action to stop the fire. All right? Everybody understand that? So yes, sometimes Islamic concepts are weaponized in order to keep people in their places, not questioning authority, not stepping outside of their lane, and just the status quo. But the problem is, if the status quo is a fire, we don't want to keep the status quo. Okay? Understood? If the status quo is poison, if the status quo is injustice, if the status quo is abuse, if the status quo is oppression, then no, we don't want to keep the status quo. But the problem is that we're taught, keep the status quo. Keep it as it is. Protect it. Protect it at all cost. This is very dangerous. Because if the status quo is fire, if the status quo is poison, no, we don't want to keep the status quo. We must take action to stop it and break the status quo. This is what the Prophet ﷺ did, isn't it? He was sent to break the status quo because it was oppressive. They were burying little girls alive. That was the status quo, right? They were doing tawaf naked. That was what they did. That status quo couldn't continue. He came to break the status quo. When the status quo is injustice, oppression, abuse, when it comes to, what about breaking the ties? When there's oppression, when there's abuse, again, this is a very difficult and delicate situation that you cannot give one answer and it applies to every situation. But what you can know is this: Allah does not want us to get burned. We can agree to that. Allah does not want oppression. Allah does not want abuse. And so what we have to do is we have to, and each case by case. But what we have to keep in mind is, I want to do my best to keep the relations, because this is important in Islam. This is very important. Ties of kinship are important in Islam. Very emphasized. But at the same time, protect myself and my family and my children from harm. And that is the balance. How I do that on a case-by-case basis is going to depend on the situation. So what do I advise? I advise getting people involved, getting help, getting counselors, getting mediators, getting people from the community, from the family that are trusted. But don't just let the fire continue to burn the house and call it sabr. But at the same time, the Prophet ﷺ said what? If you have a seed in your hand and the day of judgment comes, still plant it. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, number one, we're not supposed to be passive. Oh, it's uncomfortable. Oh, it's the day. What's the point? No. Because planting the seed is part of your worship. So when you are working hard to, rectify if there's a fire, when you are working hard to plant that seed so that other people can benefit, even if you never see the fruit, why does the Prophet ﷺ say that one of the things that benefits you in your grave is the things that you planted in this life that continue to benefit others, even if you didn't see the benefit. Sadaqa Jariya. It's a sadaqah that you gave, and it continues to benefit others. Maybe you never saw it in your life. Maybe you built a school and you died before you could see it. Maybe you started a well for people you never see in Africa or Asia or anywhere. But you are still planting that seed, and you will be rewarded for that. So we don't just think about this moment and what I'm going to see and what I'm going to benefit from. But absolutely, we're supposed to work to rectify for ourselves, for our families, and for the future generations. That's part of our worship, okay? So to not be attached to dunya doesn't mean I don't work. And I hope that that's clear also from the explanation of when your house is on fire. You could be like, well, this life is temporary. I'm in this life like a traveler. Let it burn. No, you can't do that, right? You can't look at the fire and be like, this is my test. Right? Or the other people will come by like, have sabr, sister. Have sabr. I know your kitchen is on fire, but have sabr. This is your test, right? This is your qadr.